Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today is my latest installment in my results breakdown of the 2024 presidential election between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Today's video focuses on the state of New York. New York and its 28 electoral votes, typically a very strong Democratic stronghold, actually saw a very substantial shift towards Donald Trump's direction in the 2024 presidential race. I'm going to take a look at all the statewide results, including the key counties and highest populous counties in the state, go through every single one, and just give you a look at how things looked in 2024, how they compared to 2020, and I'm even going to show you a cool little trick about some trends for the area. So the way I'm going to do this video is I'm going to start off by doing the greater New York City area first, and then I'll work my way up into the state of New York itself. So I'm going to zoom in now, just to make things a little bit easier to see because it is a little small. I'm going to start in New York itself. And I'm going to start in the city of Manhattan, where Kamala Harris won over Donald Trump 82% to 18%. This shouldn't be much of a surprise as Manhattan's a very big Democratic stronghold. Harris getting 533,782 votes, Trump getting 113,921. But I want you to look at something very important here. Okay, 82% to 18%. Let's go back to 2020 and see what Joe Biden was able to do. In 2020, Joe Biden got 86.7%. Donald Trump got 12.3%. So Trump did about 6% better in Manhattan than Joe Biden did. And this isn't just in Manhattan as well. Let's go to the Bronx, where Joe Biden got 83.4%, Donald Trump got 15.9%. Now let's look at 2024, where the Bronx, it was 73% for Kamala Harris, Donald Trump getting 27%. So again, Trump doing substantially better in the Bronx and Manhattan compared to 2020. Brooklyn, 72% for Harris, 28% for Donald Trump in 2024. Again, a very big center of Democratic votes, but again, 72-28. Back in 2020, Brooklyn was 77, 22.2. So Trump not doing much better, but doing a little bit better in one of the most Democratic areas. Queens voted for Joe Biden in 2020, 72.2 to 27. This time around, Queens voted 62-38. Again, another Democratic stronghold surrounding Manhattan, New York City, that Donald Trump did substantially better than he did in 2020. Looking right here in Nassau County, Donald Trump won this county 52% to 48% over Kamala Harris. Back in 2020, Nassau County voted for Joe Biden, and voted for Joe Biden by a lot. 54.2% to Trump's 44.7%, 396,504 votes for Biden, 326,716 for Trump. This time around, though, Nassau County, Trump got 368,117 votes, Harris getting 338,424 votes. So a 30,000 vote win for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris in 2024. We're back in 2020, Joe Biden won here by about 70,000 votes. So Trump flipping, if you do that math, about 100,000 votes or so from Biden's plus 70 to Trump's plus 30. Suffolk County voted barely for Donald Trump in 2020 at 49.4% to Biden's 49.4%, 381,253 votes for Trump, Biden getting 381,021 votes for Biden. Trump winning here by a little over 200 votes in Suffolk County. Now let's look at 2024. Trump won it in a much bigger margin this time by 10%, 417,549 votes, 55%, to Harris's 341,812 votes, 45%. Trump showing massive gains in Suffolk County and in Nassau and Queens and the Bronx and Manhattan. And before we go to the rest of the state, I am now just going to do Staten Island as well. This is a heavily Trump area, and it was once again 65% for Donald Trump, 35% for Kamala Harris. Trump getting 128,000 votes this time around in 2024. Let's take a look back at the percentages. In 2020, it was 57% for Donald Trump, 42.1% for Joe Biden. So Trump, again, improving his percentages here in big numbers by about 7%. So I think we can make the argument pretty clearly here that Donald Trump, just in this area of New York and the surrounding New York City, Staten Island, Brooklyn, Manhattan, the Bronx, Nassau, Suffolk, Queens, Trump did much better than he did in 2020. And I'm going to show you something here that might be eye-catching to you. There's a feature on the New York Times map that has shifts from the 2020 election. I've been going back and forth and showing you the 2020 results, but I want to show you the arrows here. The red arrows indicate a shift from 2020 in favor of Donald Trump from Joe Biden. And I want to zoom down here to get the right retrospect here. Staten Island voted 15 points more Republican than 2020. Brooklyn voted 11 points more Republican than 2020. That's New Jersey. Queens voted 21 points more Republican. Manhattan 9.7% more Republican. The Bronx voting 73% more Republican. Nassau County voting 14 points more Republican, and Suffolk County voting 9.9% more Republican. So just in the New York City and the surrounding boroughs of New York City, Donald Trump did much better than he did in 2020, gaining anywhere from like 10 points all the way up to even 20 points in the case of Queens. Trump really did much better in the surrounding New York City area. So I wanted to show that because I really thought that was fascinating. So that's the greater New York City area. In terms of the population of these areas, and when you look here, the boroughs are divided up into counties, but Kings County, Queens, New York County, Suffolk County, Nassau County, Bronx County, these same areas that I just went over are 6 of the largest population counties in the entire state of New York. And they're a big reason why New York for such a long time has been a very strong Democratic state. And it still is. It did vote for Kamala Harris 12% statewide. But the concerning thing for Harris is she did at least 9.9% worse than what Joe Biden did in 2020. Yes, elections have dramatic swings, and this could just be a one-time thing. And in 2028, this may totally revert back to New York being a very solid Democratic state. But what Trump was able to do in 2024 in these 6 heavily Democratic areas is certainly very important and needed to be noted. So these 6 areas, Trump made massive swings in 2024. Now to the overall statewide map for New York. I'm not going to try and just zoom in a little bit, make things a little easier to see, maybe zoom out a little bit just so we can get a clearer picture of it. Okay, the first county right outside of the New York City area is Westchester County. This one voted for Kamala Harris 63% to 37%. Let's take a look back at the percentages in 2020. Westchester voted 67.6 to 31.3 for Biden over Trump. So again, about 67.5 in 2020 for the Democrat, this time 63%. A 4-point shift based on that alone. Of course, I'll do the arrows and check the math, but about a 4-point shift there. Rockland County voted for Donald Trump as a Republican area, 56% to 44% for Donald Trump in 2024. Back in 2020, Rockland County voted for Joe Biden, 50.4% to 48.7%. This county swung massively for Donald Trump. And when we get into the arrows, I'll show you. Orange County voted last time for Donald Trump, 49.3 to 49.2, a very competitive, close place in 2020. This time around in 2024, Orange County voted 54% to 46% for Trump over Harris. Still competitive, certainly still competitive, but Donald Trump was able to boost his numbers in Orange County up from that very close win to a little bit larger, a 14,000 vote win or so. Sullivan County voted for Donald Trump 58% to 42%. Back in 2020, Sullivan voted 53.9 to 44.7. Ulster County in 2020 voted for Joe Biden 59.5% to 38.6%. In 2024, Ulster voted 59% for Kamala Harris, 41% for Donald Trump. So not a massive shift here, only about a point or two towards Trump's direction, but still a shift towards Trump, but nothing really too significant to look at in the margins on this one. Dutchess County voted for Kamala Harris 53% to 47% for Harris over Trump. This is about a 6% win for Harris. Back in 2020, this voted 54% for Biden, 44.4% for Trump. This would have been about a 10.4% win, so about a 4-point swing in these counties in the last 4 years in the swing there. Looking at the shifts in the counties I just went over, again, this is going to be a little tough to see here because of the state ones, but Westchester swung about 10 points more Republican. Orange County, 8.3% more Republican. Putnam, 57%, 43%, 5.8% more Republican. Dutchess swung 4.3%. Sullivan swung 7.5%. Ulster swung 2.3%. So again, this is continuing the trend. Pretty much every single county almost in New York, at least in this part of New York, swung pretty sizably to Donald Trump's direction from 2020. Now we're going to take it back to the counties, and we're going to continue to look. We have Delaware County right here, smaller county in terms of population. It voted for Donald Trump, 60% to 40%. Greene County, 58% for Trump, 42% for Harris. And Columbia County, 57% for Harris, 43% for Trump. let's take a look at what they were in 2020. Columbia 57.4 to 40.7, not too much of a difference there, maybe a little bit. Green voted for Trump 56.8 to 41.2. Delaware 58.3 to 39.8. Looking now throughout the state, I'm going to go a little bit quicker here because I want to get to the larger population areas. But Broome County, this is a very competitive county in the state of New York. Kamala Harris just won it 50.2% to 49.8%. I assume given the size of population of this county, this seems like a more rural and suburban type county, and it was only won by Harris by about 400 votes or so. Back in 2020, this county was won for Biden over Trump by about 3 points. 47,000 votes to 43,791, 50.7 to 47.2. A lot, or not really a lot closer, but a lot closer than it was just 4 years ago. A big swing for Trump there. Chenango County, this is what it looked like in 2020. Otsego was a very competitive county in 2024. And this time around it's 54% to 46%, Trump getting even more Republican there. We have a big city in Albany County. This is capital of New York. Albany voting for Harris, 63% to 37%. Back in 2020, it voted 64.8 to 33.3. So again, we're going to see some trends here in this area. Albany shifting about 5.7% more towards Donald Trump's direction from 2020. And you're starting to see, at least in some of these counties, there weren't really massive shifts outside of this. Delaware, I already mentioned, Green was 1.4. Columbia was only 2. Actually, no, it didn't. Delaware was only 1.3. Shohair 1.5. But nothing really too substantial. Albany shifting 5.7 is actually potentially very substantial. For the population chart of Albany County, it's only 14th in the state in terms of population, so it's not one of like the top 6 that I went over in the ones surrounding inner city Manhattan and New York City, but it is still the capital of the state and a pretty sizable jump towards Donald Trump's direction from 2020. Back to the winning here, we're going to look at some surrounding suburban counties around Albany. I believe this is Schenectady County. This one voted 55 for Harris, 45 for Trump back in 2020. This was 56.7, 41.1. So Trump gaining about 4% here. Saratoga, 51.6 for Biden in 2020, 46.2 for Trump. This is going to be one of the more competitive counties as well. This time around, Saratoga voted 50.9 for Harris, 49.1 for Trump. So again, another competitive suburban county in 2020, getting even tighter in 2024. And this is a real concern. I can't stress this enough for Kamala Harris and the Democrats in the state of New York. This is supposed to be a big Democratic stronghold. This is the state of New York. This is not a competitive state. And yet, Kamala Harris, at least in every county we've seen so far in New York thus far, has not had a county trend her way yet. 2 counties did trend her way from 2020, but most of them trended towards Donald Trump's way in pretty substantially. Washington County, a smaller county in the state of Vermont, voted for Donald Trump 61% to 39%. Rensselaer County voting for Harris 50.7%, 49.3% for Trump. Back in 2020, it was 51.7, 46. I already covered that one. I just wanted to rehash that. Warren County was a very close one in 2020, 49% for Trump, 48.8% for Biden. In 2024, it voted 52% for Trump, 48% for Harris. So again, trending a little bit more Republican there. Montgomery, Fulton County, smaller counties voting big for Donald Trump. Hermiker County, 68%, 32%. Oneida County, as we start to get in towards the Syracuse area, I'm going to go back towards the middle part of the state and work my way around. Warren County, 52%, already covered that. Essex County, smaller county, but very, very close in percentage in 2024, 50.3% for Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, 49.7%. If my memory serves me correct, I believe Joe Biden did win this county back in 2020. He did 51.6 to 46.6. Another smaller suburban county that seemed to trended more towards Donald Trump's way than it did in 2020. Clinton County, 51.8% for Biden in 2020, Trump 46.6%. Again, suburban competitive county. Donald Trump won this county this time, 51% to 49%. We're seeing a consistent trend from 2020 to 2024 of Donald Trump putting up like early 2000s level numbers in the suburbs. In a lot of these states, pretty much all of New England showed these trends, and so far New York is showing these trends too, of Donald Trump really improving his numbers in the suburbs that he really did not have in 2020. And for granted, even in 2020 or in 2016, he did better in the suburbs than he did in 2020. But a lot of that was attributed to third-party vote. In 2024, Trump was getting outright majorities in a lot of these suburban counties, which showed his electoral improvement from 2020 to 2024. So that was Clinton County. Franklin County voting for 10 points for Donald Trump, 55-45. Back in 2020, it went for Trump 50.2 to 48. So again, a big swing for Donald Trump of about, what's that, 10% or so? Or no, not 10%. I'm sorry, I got it mixed up. I thought it was 60. About a 5% swing in Franklin County. That makes more sense. St. Lawrence County, voting for Donald Trump 59% to 41%, a suburban area. It swung here about another 4% towards Donald Trump's side in 2024. Looking at the trends for these areas that we just covered, again, St. Lawrence trended about 6% more Republican. Franklin trended about 6.9%, almost 7% Republican. Clinton trending 7.4%. Essex sending 4.5%. We have Warren going 4.1%. Washington going 5.6%. And we have Saratoga 3.6%. Fulton 4.5%. Montgomery 6.2%. And we get back into some of the areas we've already covered. Again, Donald Trump doing much better in rural and suburban parts of New York State as well as the inner city New York City part. As we just did St. Lawrence, Jefferson County voting 62% for Donald Trump, 38% for Harris. Lewis County 72.8% for Trump, Harris 28%. Herkimer County voting for Trump over Harris, 68-32. Oneida 61-39. Oneida, as a larger county, just going to look back now, 56.8% in 2020. This time, Trump getting up to about 61%. This is as we're working towards Syracuse, one of the larger cities in New York as well. Madison County surrounding it voted for Trump, 57-43. Oswego, 62-38% in 2024. Looking back in 2020, Oswego was 59-38.8. Oneida, 56.8 to 41.2. Madison 54.1 to 43.5. So all these counties were sort of like likely Republican counties in terms of the margins of victories in 2020. And in 2024, the margins either stayed pretty similar or got a little bit larger, in some cases even breaking over that 15% case. In Onondaga County, this is where Syracuse is, this voted for Kamala Harris 59% to 41%. And Onondaga County, just looking now in the state, is about the 11th largest county in the state in terms of population, and Syracuse voted 59% for Harris, 41% for Trump. In 2020, it voted about the same, 58.9% for Biden, 39% about for Trump. So Trump doing about 2% better in Onondaga County, Harris running about the same to what Joe Biden was able to do. Cayuga County voting for Trump over Harris, 56%, 44%. Cortland County going for Trump closely, 53% to 47%. This one, Cortland County, was a 49.8, 47.2, or 47.8, so a 2-point win in 2020. That was very close as well. Chenango County was a big win in 2020. This time around 64-36 as well, big county for Donald Trump. Not massive populations, but big percentages. Otsego, we already covered, 54-46. Madison, 57, we already covered. Now we're starting to move into the western part of the state of New York itself. Tioga County, 61% for Donald Trump, 39% for Harris. Tompkins voting for Harris, 75%, 25%. Again, not that large, more of a suburban county, it seems. Cayuga, we just covered. Seneca County voting for Trump, 56% to 44%. Let's check the percentages on this one back in 2020. 53.4, 44.3, so a little bit of an improvement for Trump there. We have Wayne County right here, 62% for Donald Trump, 38% for Kamala Harris. We have Lake Erie right here. We have Ontario County. Ontario County, I believe, was one of the closest counties in the state of New York in 2020. Donald Trump won this one 50.6% to 49.4%, a margin of victory of just 1.2%. Certainly very, very close. Ontario in 2020 voting for Trump 48.7 to 48.6. So a 0.1% win for Trump in 2020 turned out to be about a 1.2% win in 2024. So again, another suburban area in a very competitive part of New York going more towards Donald Trump. Certainly very significant in Ontario. Yates County voting 58-42 for Trump. Steuben County voting 66-34% for Trump, 34% for Harris. And now we're going to stop right here along this line with Wayne, Ontario, and Steuben. Just look at them shifts before we go into Rochester and Buffalo and the western part of New York State. Shifts here. Syracuse swung about 2.8% towards Donald Trump from 2020 to 2024. Wayne County shifted about 3.5 points towards Trump. Cayuga County 4.1% towards Trump. Seneca 2.7%. Yates County actually is trending about 2.4% towards Kamala Harris than Donald Trump. So that's interesting. I believe that's the first trend towards Harris I've seen in any of the states that I've done so far. Tompkins trending about 1.3% towards Harris than Trump. Schuyler County 3.3% towards Trump, and Chemung County 3.4% towards Trump. Steuben going about 2.1% towards Trump as well. Now we're going to get into the Allegheny area, so I'm going to cut it off there. Livingston 3.3% as well. That did a little bit of the counties I haven't done yet, but that's fine. So again, Wayne, Ontario, and Steuben's where we left off. Now we're going to go up here in Allegheny and work our way up. 72%, 28% for Trump over Harris. Livingston was 61%, 39% for Trump over Harris. Rochester and Monroe County, this is one of the larger parts. I believe Monroe County is pretty high up on the list. Yes, it is as well. It's 9th overall in the state in terms of population by county at 748,482 people. Monroe is certainly very high up there. Rochester voting for Kamala Harris 60% to 40%. Comparing that to 2020, where Biden got 59.4%, 38.3% for Trump. So Harris doing about the same, maybe about 0.5% or so better than Biden did in 2020. Trump at 38.3% in 2020, up to 40%, doing about 2 points better on the Republican side of things. Now looking at some of these counties outside of Rochester, we have Orleans County 70-30 for Trump over Harris. Genesee County 67-33 for Trump over Harris. Wyoming County 74-26 for Trump over Harris. We have Cattaraugus County 66%, 34% Trump over Harris. Chautauqua County 61%, 39% for Trump over Harris. Erie County, this is where the city of Buffalo is. Of course, one of the largest cities in the state of New York. Erie County voting, or about 8th in the state in terms of overall population. 946,147 people live in Erie County. This one voting for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump by 10 points, 55% to 45%. 248,651 votes for Harris, 204,774 for Donald Trump. That's going to be a win of about 44,000 votes for Harris over Trump. Again, remember, 55-45% back in 2020, 56.5 to 41.7. So we saw a pretty sizable shift here. The Democrats lost about 1 to 1.5% support in Erie County in 2024. Donald Trump, though, was able to gain about 3 to 4% in Erie County, and I'll show that when I show the trends as well. Niagara County voted for Trump in 2020, 53.8 to 44.2, and in 2024 voted for Donald Trump 57% to 44.3%. So we'll look at the shifts again. The largest ones we're going to find here that we haven't gone over already: Allegheny shifted 4.1% more Republican. Cattaraugus voted 3.2. Chautauqua voted 2.1 more towards Trump. Erie County shifting 5.1% more Republican than in 2020, which again, this goes into the biggest problem the Democrats faced in 2024, is yes, they won the state of New York, and they did win it in a likely Democratic margin, so there's not really too much reason to panic on the Democratic side about winning New York, say, in 2028. But the largest cities in New York, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, New York City, Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, all of these big Democratic areas, reliable Democratic areas, shifted at least 4 to 5 points or more towards Donald Trump's direction. If that were to happen again in 2028, then things would become a very real problem. That's hypothetical. We don't know if the Republican nominee, which will likely be J.D. Vance, would be able to have these shifts that Donald Trump had in 2024, in which 24 seems to be a very good Republican wave year where Donald Trump won every swing state. It doesn't seem like that's going to be a problem for a later day, where it's going to be a hypothetical situation here. But it's certain that Donald Trump did certainly very well in Buffalo, 5.3% shift in Niagara, Orleans County, 4.4% shift as well, in Rochester, a 2-point shift in Monroe County for Harris and Trump. So overall, that's pretty much all the counties in the state of New York. I tried my best to cover every county in the state and all their votes. I mean, just look at the map. Look at the shifts in the state. Aside from 2 counties, Yates County and Tompkins County, 2 Democratic areas that are heavily Democratic, and actually, no, I'm sorry, Yates County is not heavily Democratic. Tompkins is, both smaller in terms of population. The entire state of New York shifted Republican except for those 2 places. And when you look back, we just did New England, where almost every single area in New England shifted Republican as well in these very heavily Democratic areas like Vermont, like Maine, like Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and in the swing state of New Hampshire, which I thought was going to be a likely Democratic state and not really be a swing state anymore. New Hampshire showed, no, we're still a swing state by how much it shifted towards Donald Trump. New York had an absolutely massive shift towards Donald Trump from 2020 to 2024. And as I've mentioned multiple times now, a huge reason was the big shifts Trump was able to do in the surrounding New York City areas and its surrounding boroughs. And very underrated was the shifts Trump was able to make in Albany, in Syracuse, in Rochester, and in Buffalo. The state of New York is very fascinating because it's been a Democratic stronghold for so long, and I still think it probably will be in 2028. Especially, I think New York will still be at worst a likely Democratic state. But it's a state that doesn't get a ton of attention in terms of just how close many counties are and the trends are in the state, despite its really large population. Again, the state of New York is about 28 electoral votes. It's one of the largest states in the United States in terms of population. Yet we saw such a rightward shift in the state of New York in 2024. It is a very fascinating state, and one, quite frankly, there's so many counties in the state, I really enjoyed covering it because this is one I've not spent a ton of attention on myself. So I even learned a lot about the state of New York and this one and how many closed counties there really were. Getting into the precise numbers of New York in 2024, Kamala Harris got about 46.3% statewide, which on the other screen rounded down to 56%. Donald Trump getting 43.7%, this rounding up to about 44. So I'm going to pull out my phone now and just get the exact number for you of the margin of victory between Harris and Trump in the state of New York, so I can have this number and I can compare it to my actual prediction. So Harris defeated Donald Trump in the state of New York approximately by 12.6% margin of victory. So Harris's margin percentage and Trump's differed by about 12.6%. Of the total 8.198094 votes, 8,198,094 votes cast in the state of New York, Kamala Harris got 4,619,195. Donald Trump 3,578,899 votes. Harris defeating Trump in the state of New York overall by about 1.1, a little under 1.1 million votes in the state of New York. So again, 12.6% margin of victory is the difference between Harris and Trump. We're now going to look at my prediction for 2024, seeing how I did in my deep dive series, how close I got or how far off I was. So I haven't looked at this before recording this video, so I haven't looked at this since I made the video like 2 months ago now, so I'm very interested to see how close I got or if I got close at all. Okay, here we go. In the state of New York, I had Kamala Harris getting 56.7%, Donald Trump getting 40.2%, with a margin of victory of 16.5. So just doing quick math in my head here, 16.5 minus 12.6, I was off by approximately 4% in terms of the margin of victory. So for the overall margin of victory in the state, I was off by 4 points. Not my best, not my favorite in terms of actually guessing the state. 4 points, I think definitely there's a lot for me to learn. As I mentioned, there's a lot I have learned about New York in this video. As for how I got close to the candidates themselves, Harris I had getting 56.7%. Harris got 56.3%. So on Harris's end, I was only off by about 0.4%. I'm actually very, very proud with how I did on the Democratic side of things on accurately guessing the Democratic votes. What I was off by was Donald Trump's percentage. Trump got 43.7%. I had Trump getting 40.2%. So I was off by about 3.5 percentage points on Donald Trump's end. So I definitely thought a lot of this has to do with, I thought there'd be a lot more third-party vote in a lot of the Democratic areas in 2024 than there actually was. I thought Kamala Harris would get somewhere in between what Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton did in 2020 and 2016, which he kind of did. But on Donald Trump's end, I thought he would do a little bit better or a little bit worse than 2020, maybe a little better in some areas, but nothing too drastic. A lot of the Democratic areas I've seen so far is Donald Trump did better pretty much everywhere from 2020 to 2024 and from 2016 to 2024. New York was one of those states that I certainly underestimated Trump's support, despite getting the Democratic support pretty much on the nose. So again, 0.4% I was off by on the Democratic side, 3.5 points I was wrong on the Republican side, so I certainly underestimated Trump in my prediction. Again, that's why the margin of victory was off by about 4 points. The only consolation I can really take, I guess you can call it a hollow victory, is I came within half a percentage points at getting Kamala Harris's percentage, but the Republican one I definitely need to note going forward. Like many others that were shocked that New York finished under 15% under a safe margin and is a likely Democratic margin. My prediction, I was a little shocked by that as well, that Trump did so well in the state. But again, it was initially his home state, so maybe he did better than some other Republicans would in the state of New York. But that's pretty much all I'm going to have to talk about the state of New York in this video. I kind of covered everything. I don't want to start repeating myself too much, even more than I probably already have in this video. But again, New York's a very interesting state. Donald Trump doing a lot better in New York than I expected, and I bet many others expected as well. The state saw a lot of Republican shifts in 2024, and certainly something that I think we're going to have to monitor going forward is maybe New York, I don't think in 2028 it will be competitive, but maybe 2032 to 2036 we could see a shifting of the guard in New York, where maybe it becomes a lean Democratic state along the same lines as like New Hampshire or Maine, and maybe things could get potentially competitive. I don't think it's anywhere close to that yet, but you never know. It could be something very interesting to watch. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of the 2024 election results. Obviously, I put a ton of time and effort into this, so I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give the video a like and click subscribe to my channel so you get updates and notified when I post more videos just like this one going forward. I've also done every state before New York, going from east to west. So I have Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine done so far. They'll all be in the same playlist, so if you want to check any of those states out, you absolutely can. I highly encourage you to. As for this series, the next state I'm going to do is the state of New Jersey, which, just like New York, Donald Trump did much better in than I think many, including myself, expected. So this should be a very fascinating situation to watch in the state of New Jersey. In the meantime, that'll do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Again, please remember to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in a future video. That will do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a like. And if you really liked it, please remember to click the subscribe button. And make sure you turn post notifications on so you always get notified when I post a new video. That way you never miss one. Also, please remember to share this video with your friends and family if you really like the video. And remember to stay tuned because I'll be posting at least one video every single day leading up until Election Day. So I'd really appreciate it if you keep coming back and watching those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.